Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss, an Aftersight original podcast. In each episode, we share stories, insights, and practical advice to help you navigate the journey of living with low vision or blindness. Together, we'll embrace each step with courage, grace, and hope.
Hello, I'm Kim Wardlow, and I am your host for NLVL. Welcome to the podcast. And we're actually just winding down our series on safety. This is actually our last episode with a guest. And we've had all kinds of discussions about safety in travel, at school, in your home, your personal safety, physical, emotional, financial, online, all kinds of safety. And today we're ending with talking about building your safety network, because that's really a really important thing that we all need to have. And I'm excited because our guest today is Joe Strechay, just kind of a big deal in Hollywood and in the blindness world. So you may have heard of him. He would probably never say he's a big deal, but he is the guy that folks in Hollywood call when they want to get blindness right. He worked as the blindness consultant and associate producer on Apple TV's See, and helped to shape everything from how actors move through a scene to how the world itself should feel for someone without sight. And he also brought his expertise to Netflix's All the Light We Cannot See, making sure the story honored the blindness experience with authenticity and heart. Outside of TV and film, Joe spent years helping blind and low vision folks build confidence, find meaningful work, live more independently, whether he's behind the scenes on a major production or teaching someone how to take the next step in their life. Joe brings passion, humor, and a whole lot of practical wisdom. And so I am super excited, Joe, to have you on and in your role of helping folks with vision loss as they're navigating their lives and looking at building a safety network. I think, sometimes folks, do you have a safety network? They think of a safety person like an emergency contact, but this is much bigger than that, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. Thank you so much for the kind intro. I'm still working on the big deal thing. I would say the only thing that's big is probably my head, and but I'm excited to be with you, Kim, and thank you for allowing me to be on here. Safety network, and it is different than a safety contact. Really, we talk often about our personal network and our and networking in general, but a safety network is more important than that in a lot of ways, because that's what provides it in case of situations, depending on what it is. It's not just an emergency, like your house is on fire. It's like you need something, or and it's coming down to the wire, whether it's I think you've spoken about transportation in the past.
Mhm.
Having a safety network around transportation is important, but also around other situations. Stuff around your house, like making sure, if you're unsure of like the people you're bringing into your house, like construction or
Mhm.
whatever. And I have no sight, and I navigated the world with low vision back in the day. And in both situations, there are times where you might need some kind of visual assistance to make sure some situation it works right. But it's not just like in your home; it's out in the world. I've used that safety network for different things. I think back to coming out of college, and with my I have a twin brother who has sight, and figuring out like clothing for job interviews, and I couldn't see colors, and couldn't see stains on certain colors, and helping assistants, people I knew I could count on for different situations. And I built a safety network around myself when I was in college. at East Carolina University because I gave up. I was losing my sight, and became legally blind during that time, and gave up my driver's license. And so finding transportation, whether it was the bus, but also in a rural area, like it was in North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina. Um, there wasn't as much transportation. So being able to use a network of people, but not sticking just to travel. But when I talk about my safety network, I have people when I'm in a situation, I just put out to my network around employment. I just finished up a big project for the last 14 months or so, and a few more months of other stuff I'm going to be doing. But and I just put out to my network that I'm looking for gigs around um, like speaking and public speaking at schools or businesses. And I've done a lot of that. I've spoken at middle schools, high schools. So I reach out, and I know there's a number of these people that I've that have been around my presentations before who can vouch for me and will share that information. My safety network. I'm married. My wife is part of my safety network, but it's more than that. I have my twin brother, my older brother. We have a text thread at all times that we're talking about different things. I have people around technology, like, I, and this, in a lot of ways, to me, my safety network can be also filled with people that I've in the past might have been mentors. I have mentors in my life who are around technology, employment, living life independently, and so many other things. But within that safety network, I might have around technology, problem solving. If I can't figure out the problem, I have people I can go to. This network of people that I trust, and it's not a one-way relationship. It goes back and forth, because you don't want to become kind of like I don't want to say that the only reason you're going to someone is ask for something, and I think that's important with a safety network in general, is not to put strain on the relationship, and not to overuse a relationship, but also to maintain that relationship and make sure it's not just coming one way, and figuring out other ways you can help your network, or those individuals in some way. Um, Whether we always talk about um, utilizing your skills and benefit and strategies and things that you're good at to help others. And I think that's part of maintaining those relationships in your safety network. Um, and I have safety networks about around where I live. Like my wife and I live in West Virginia now, Fayetteville, West Virginia. We just moved back here like 3 years ago. But I spend a lot of my time traveling for work or for long periods. But my wife's family's in the area, but I also have friends. I have developed relationships with people in the area. My wife has had long time relationships with people in the area, but also we've developed new ones. So if we need things or there are situations, I and I'm going to put another layer into this that most people might not put into their safety network, and I'm blessed. I live in a very rural area, and like my county does not have share ride at this point. Like unless
Yeah.
someone feels like really lucky, like really, if you put it out there a long time ahead and like a pre-planned ride, they may take it if it's a longer ride. So I have to hire a driver for situations. So I have a person that I pay to help with things like that at times, and that person is definitely part of our safety network. There are times when we need things around our house, like we have a generator, and if we're not there, there are people we can count on, and I would say that person is more than just like an assistant. They are definitely part of our safety network, our neighbors as well. And as say that, we have to give back. Like our neighbors were out of power, and we have a generator, so we were like running a line from our house to their house when power was out for a couple days to make sure that we were taking care of them, because they definitely take care of us from time to time.
Yeah, so it's really all built on relationships. And also what I'm hearing you say is that your network, there's different people for different things, but your network may change over time because you're in a different phase of life, because you have moved, because, well, now you have kids, so you need a safety network if, oh, you need somebody to pick up your child because you're not able to, or like all these things. So it's very individualized
It
what
is, and
people's networks would be.
there, I like a great point about if you have children and need your children picked up in a situation, having trusted people that are in defined roles, and I think also communicating some of that to those individuals that you're creating that relationship and understanding that that they could be available in a situation when needed, and that doesn't mean they'll always be available, but you should have a couple people you can reach out to in those situations. I think that's a wonderful point there. You nailed it with that, and I think we have those types of situations in our life. I don't know. It could be uh, getting access to something. More and more of us are relying on technology to try to, whether it's these like smart glasses or whether it's apps or devices, but often people can be extremely valuable. My buddy Darren Burton lives up in Morgantown, West Virginia, and he's more known for like work on the early part of when they were bringing out voiceover for the Apple devices. But he's a mobile accessibility guy, but he has a network of people that he surrounds himself with that and he maintains those relationships. Like he'll buy them dinner on occasion or snacks at times, and it's not always like a paid situation. It's a friends who definitely look out for him in other ways. He lives alone, has a pool. He's pretty he's done pretty well in life. But he may make sure that he's surrounded by trusted people, and there'll be people that move out of that network, or even move themselves out of that network, or let that they're not comfortable with it. And that's why having those conversations is so important, because you don't want to impose on someone and put them in a situation where they don't feel comfortable.
Right. And I think that's a great point to say, well, you can't just presume that somebody is part of your network. There are those more casual things, like you said, oh, well, I'm looking for my next project. You might put that out on social media. And yes, those are people in your social media network, but that's very different than, say, like my neighbor and I, we were talking one day and we said, oh, maybe we should exchange house keys. So if either of us is out of town, if something happens, the other could, get in if it looks like there's a water leak, or, those kind of things. You want to be sure, we talked about it. We asked if that was okay, as opposed to my just saying, oh, here, Don, here's a key, because you're my person that I'm going to have look after my house when I'm out of town, right? You can't just do that, but it's that communication. And so whatever it is, but especially some of those bigger things, or, like you said, picking up kids, or obviously you're going to have a trusted person, but even those trusted people, you want to be sure that there's some kind of agreement of like, we're going to be this type of support for each other, so they're not caught off guard.
100%. And I love the key thing. Our neighbors we have some great neighbors around us, and we all look out for each other. And the ones who we hook up with the generator with the power, they also, when their washer broke, so we gave they had our key. We gave it to them. They asked if they would be able to use our washer and dryer. Maybe it was just the washer, but we were like, yeah, definitely go use it, please. And like anything, you create that network. So we're part of their safety network as well.
Right.
And it's not always going both ways, but it does help when you're maintaining that relationship and there's that give back and forth, and you can find ways to help other people out. So yeah, defining what that is and what you can do, or what they need help with that you might be able to lend support. I always stress that kind of relationship. When I talk about mentorship, it's the same way. Like mentors and mentees, like if a mentee's not doing the effort and they're just listening to someone speak, or I often in those situations I'm providing assignments or work, and if they don't do it, they're not putting in the effort, and then in my mind they're kind of wasting my time. And in a safety network, we want to make sure that we're maintaining that relationship, so if they need something, we're there for them as well, and you have to be comfortable
Mhm.
with whatever that is. So um, yeah, you got to figure that out, and communication is key.
Yeah. Well, and do you have any advice? I know you said you moved a few years ago, but for folks that are moving to a different situation, they're moving away from some of the folks that were part of their local safety network, um, and how you find the right people as you're in a new, a new physical environment, or professional environment, and you don't have the people that you had before surrounding you.
Great question, because in my work, I move places and I have to create a
Hmm.
whole new network, safety network, and not even just a safety network, almost a personal network within that
Right.
community. So I've worked in British Columbia, a total of I don't know, 10 months, and then another 14 months on another project. I worked in Ontario, like Toronto. And all for I don't know, like 3.5 years, 3.5 months in Budapest in Hungary,
Oh,
and
wow.
a month and a half in France. And in all these situations, especially in Canada and such, I've had to create a network, a safety network. I can tell you my first the 10 months I did in my first time in British Columbia, it was just myself there. My wife was back in the States. And I had to create that network and figure out who those people were for me. Because when I go into, and I work in film, so when I go into a project, it's often a whole new business or corporation. And most of the people, if not all the people, I have not worked with. Luckily enough, on occasion, there's like one, maybe two people that I've worked with, but it's not always that case. And I have to kind of create those relationships in the workplace, but also figure it out in my personal life. Like figuring out how I'm gonna whether laundry is in my apartment or whether I have to go someplace to do my laundry, and like how I'm gonna get there and what the transportation system is like. And I always connect with the blindness community in those areas. So
Mhm.
I have a pretty good connection with the blindness community in Ontario and in British Columbia. And I try to be active in that community and make sure that I'm doing stuff for my community as well. And then they help me out as well, and they give me tips and advice and other things and connections to other people. Um, yeah, I one of the, you know, I know the we're often we often get asked if we know some blind person just because we're in like one state, but truth is, if you're active in the blindness community, you probably know some
You
people.
actually might know somebody in a different state.
Yeah, or you know someone who knows someone,
Right.
or you can put on social media now, and yeah, like it's a small community. We only make up a small population, but we're pretty well connected overall. So I really find that our community is strong and willing to help each other, and I benefit from that all over the world, all over North America, and yeah, it's definitely been a benefit to me. And so figuring out like buses or trains or whatever, taxis, free like share ride, and then share ride. Some places didn't have share ride. Budapest,
Mhm.
I had to learn they had an app for taxis. And and I can tell you. a hard situation. I don't know if you want a kind of funny story. Um,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would be good for our listeners like to hear a challenging situation too, because it's not always just easy.
yeah, I was in Budapest, and it was like maybe my first night or second night in Budapest, and my wife was there, but she wanted to stay home in the apartment. And one of my friends, who's a director, producer guy, he was working on another TV show that was filming in Budapest, and we texted because we were both going to be there, um, and he's like, "Oh, come out with me and my girlfriend." And my other friend went out as well, who came had worked with me prior, and we went out with them. And then at the end, I booked a taxi through an app, and like I had just gotten there, so I hadn't learned the neighborhood real well. I just figured I could get the taxi to the exact point where I lived, and yeah, yeah, let's just say I dropped her off, and then the taxi dropped me off, but they didn't drop me off in the right spot,
Oh
and
no.
I got out of the cab,
It's
and I'm using my
classic.
cane, tap, tap, listening to the sound, and, I'm like, "This is not right." I'm like, "I think I know where I am, but I'm not sure," and I'm like and internet connection in a foreign country, at the time. I
Mhm.
wasn't totally set up yet. I think it might have been the first night, and, I heard some voices, so I tried to talk to them, and, they
They didn't speak English?
they either didn't speak English or acted like they didn't speak English. A lot of the folks do speak English, but they're, like, closed off until you warm them up, and I didn't
Right.
know as much of the language yet, and
Right.
I did learn it while I was there, but, but I ended up having to I was trying to use, like, Seeing AI and all this, but the internet I ended up having to call my wife a few times, wake her up, and be like, so I know I'm pretty close. The street names were confusing because of how they're put in a different language, and I'm like, I think I'm within a block or so. Do you think you could open the window and see if you see me outside somewhere? On it because it's on our windows were on the other side of the building, and she saw me across the street,
Oh.
on the which is like a block over basically from our
Mhm.
front of our building, and, but then he's like, "Okay, cross the street, come along, through that alley, and then follow the block around to the right, and you'll the second stoop or whatever." And, but, it was a learning experience, and I had to be more prepared, and I had all kinds of notes and stuff and things, and I started Google Translate, as well, and then but I also learned some of the language too, so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of an unplanned adventure.
Yes.
But we will never forget it. It's those things that you really they're a little bit painful, but as long as they end up okay, they're like these great learning experiences that you remember for the next time. Have you ever had s- a person, an organization, someone in your network that you trusted that not that just couldn't, do whatever you needed at the time. I mean, obviously those things happen, but really you realized, wow, I shouldn't have put this person in my network.
Yeah,
Give
I
an example.
definitely, been introduced to folks or organizations who sold themselves as really like they really sold themselves highly, and when it came down to it, it was nothing of the sort, and I was like, I was so disappointed, and I definitely learned some lessons along that line. But I'm always trying to create new relationships, and some of them benefit, and some you just have to write off and move on. And
Mhm.
I'm not big on typically going around bashing them, folks, but you just learn that they're not someone you can depend on, or that organization isn't. Yeah.
Mhm. And that's okay. You can let them go out of your network. It's not you don't have to keep trying to make that work when it doesn't, because that's just it's frustrating. And depending on what you're relying on them for, could, even be dangerous or harmful. Yeah.
Oh, definitely, 100%. I kn I think of it, back when I was single many, many years ago. My wife and I have been married, 14 ye 14 years.
Hmm.
I had to think about that. Um, but, we before her, when I was dating, I always had a 2-date rule, you know? Everyone could have a bad first date, and then, um, there are extreme situations where you won't get that second date, but for the most part, I gave everyone a second date, before I made my decision on, like, to continue dating. And I think in situations with people in organizations, there are are always situations that could happen, or obstacles they're facing as well. But I don't go quite to the 3 strikes you're out. I'm more the 2 strikes and you're out in that situation.
Hmm. Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about tech and other tools. Obviously, having actual people in your lives is super important, and you want that, whether they're friends or acquaintances through business or the coffee shop you go to or whatever it is. But there are some really great tools, and that can maybe fill in gaps if you're not able to reach somebody, or you're new to an
100%.
area, those kinds of things. Are there specific tools you found helpful?
I use a lot of different technology apps and devices. I try them. I have I guess, a toolbox of tools, and I've been blessed. Be My Eyes, like Be My AI for description of images. Be My Eyes also for connecting with people at times. I also pay for the service Aira, or you can be accessing. Like Aira is a visual description. I think what do they call themselves? A visual translation service.
Hmm.
So they are can connect with you, and Be My Eyes is a free version, where it's volunteers. Ira is paid operators who've been trained, and they can access more information than the Be My Eyes people. But the Be My Eyes people volunteer to loan their eyes to you. Basically, they can access the camera on your phone and see what you're seeing through your phone, and you can show them things and ask for whether it's a thermostat in a hotel room, or some kind of touchscreen that's not accessible. um, Same with Ira. Ira can show you, like, these operators have access to a dashboard that has they can bring up where you are on the map, like your GPS location. They can look up routes. You can do that yourself on your phone too, but they can also look up, like, act almost like a personal assistant, like the bus route and the time it's coming at. Um, and I know I've ran into some best bus time charts, kind of, that were
Hmm.
inaccessible, or created in a table that's not labeled or something. But they can find that information quickly to help you, or maybe you're trying to use a device, and I will the places, because I move so much for my work. I will label my appliances, and I'll use Ira to help figure out what the buttons are, and then I put the like bump dots and other things in the place on the buttons, and or the braille labels that I use on those buttons. And yeah, that way I can label my own appliances in my apartments and different places I have to stay, making it accessible for myself. Seeing AI is a great free app that can do currency. It can do like images. It can OCR. It can what is it? Optical character recognition. So, like, converting files, like from some kind of image version or something, or a picture. They can describe, as well as it can describe people, objects, scene, products. And then what else do I use? Be My Eyes. I use lots of travel ones, like maps and stuff. Indigo is a new one that it was based on the Sendero one that was formerly of Good Maps, but APH just put out. But I have Apple Maps, Google Maps. I have all the many of them, oh, what it was the one I used to use from Microsoft. Now there's a open source version of it. Can't think of the name of it, but yeah, there are a lot of apps out there, and I have the Meta glasses, and I do use them.
Mhm.
My mom is blind as well, and she loves her Meta glasses now. My buddy Darren, who lives alone, and she lives alone as well, and Darren uses them all the time as well. They're not going to give you like the OCR detail that like the Envision glasses will give you, but it's come a long way, and now they've released their API for app developers. So I'm expecting like seeing AI or something to get
Right.
embedded into it. But the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, they've the Oakley, and I think they're experimenting with a trade-in policy too.
Oh,
Much
wow.
cheaper than the other glasses too.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Wow. Well, that's so much information. You also mentioned, organizations, groups, especially if you're in a new area. I know personally, I found even though we've been where we live for like 22 years, but there's still things that, now as things happen, you need somebody to paint or clean your carpets or, fix your furnace or those kinds of things. I mean, certainly you're asking your friends and your neighbor, but realtors, we have a realtor, our realtor, but we also have a realtor that lives 2 doors down to us. So I'm always like, Michael, who does this? And realtors are just a wealth of information.
They are. They are. And the list they have are like people that will do it, and they are good at it, and are usually quick turnaround comparatively. Realtors are a wealth of information. You are so right. Like I've never had home improvement people like lists of multiple people better than from a realtor.
Well,
Mhm.
and I always feel like if they obviously know that the realtors put them on their list. So I feel like I have a little bit higher level of trust, even though it's a stranger coming into my home. But the realtor who's, you know, out there uh, being aware of all different companies and people and that's probably a pretty solid recommendation.
That is a wonderful recommendation. I 100% agree. Like I've become friends with the realtors I've used over the years, and they always gave us these amazing lists of people, or we'd go back to them and they would give us recommendations. And yes, oh man, so true.
Yeah. um, well, you've given us so much great information and just about building networks. It takes some time, and it takes some practice and some thought, even if you're using apps to help you, like all of those things, just kind of um, thinking about what you might be using in advance if you're traveling, um, thinking about, well, what if the internet doesn't work, like all of those things. So just a little bit of preparation, but it can really make the difference to have that network of
Definitely.
some sort in
Yeah,
place.
I agree with you. I always have backup of like the information where I'm going, like all kinds of details, basically like an itinerary where I'm going, that in case the internet or something's not working, I put it in the notes or a document or a file or something so that I have it. And yeah, very important.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts or encouragement for our listeners as they're maybe developing their own networks, or strengthening one that they've had? Maybe people have moved out of it for one reason or another, and they're kind of rebuilding.
Yeah. One of the things I always like to emphasize is, put yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable, because the more you do that, the more comfortable you become being uncomfortable. Like, and it makes life easier. It's tough. It's easy to say, but that challenge will open new doors and connect you to new people. Put yourself out in the world, and you know, and know that people care out there in the world. I like to say that 99% of the people I interact with in the world are positive um, interactions.
Mhm.
And that 1% is pretty tiny compared to that 99%. And life is short, and take advantage and get out there in the world. And it can be scary at times. I remember losing my sight, and being low vision and all those things. And uh, but I think being part of the world is so important, and joining community groups like churches and religion or religious centers, or whatever your background, or community centers, or places where you can volunteer, creates another aspect of your network, that could eventually become part of your safety network. So just put yourself out there.
Yeah, definitely those groups where you have a common interest is always a great place to start. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. Do you want to let folks know? I mean, you did mention like you're looking for speaking engagements. I can vouch for Joe. He spoke at our IAAIS, the International Association of Audio Information Services, of which Aftersight is one, at our conference last June, and everyone just so enjoyed your speaking, and you answered some questions. So I could give him a recommendation, but how do folks reach you?
You can find me at either strechay.org, strechay I think it might be strechay.net as well, but a whole bunch like that, which is spelled Strechay. And also, you can find me on LinkedIn under Joe Strechay. You can find me on Instagram under Joe Strechay or Jay Strechay. And on X as well. I'm not on there too often. Facebook under Joe Strechay. Yeah, I'm on all those things. And I said LinkedIn. Yeah, I did. Yeah, all those things. So yeah, thank you.
Sure. Well, great. We so enjoyed having you on the program. And we appreciate all of you out there who are listening. We hope this series has really benefited you. If you haven't already, check out some of our other podcasts. I know Joe has been on The Blind Chick with Penn Street. Yeah. If you're looking for help with technology, as we've mentioned some today, if you're wanting more information, Blind Level Tech is all about technology. Blind Sight is our mental health podcast. And if you're thinking, oh yeah, I have my network, but what if I am trying to prepare for, like a natural disaster type of emergency, not the day-to-day, we have Code Orange, and those episodes are all about emergency preparedness. So all those different programs are there for your support. So you can always find those wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you can find out more information also about Aftersight that brings these podcasts to you at aftersight.org. So thanks for listening. And as always, we hope that this episode has helped you navigate your life with vision loss.